Is it loud enough? طيب. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
طيب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. بارك الله فيكم وجزاك الله خير for the invitation. I really enjoyed Sheikh Uthman's talk, and I just wanted to not add something, but just maybe mention one point that he has obviously discussed. But one of the reasons why today we are compromising our deen, and he has alluded to it, and it is a controversial thing, which is so sad that it is controversial, because it is one of the most basic things of our, and it's part of our aqidah, and in doing so we are losing our foundations and we are selling our deen, and actually no one is safe from that. And one of the scholars said that the most ignorant and dumbest person is the one who thinks he's safe in his deen. He thinks, I'm good, bro. My aqidah, akhi. Solid, man, don't worry. Because the fitna is so big these days that you really have to be aware. You have to be on guard. I'm scared. I'm scared for myself. I'm scared for my kids. Today I was having a discussion. One brother was driving to the airport in Detroit, and I was talking to him, and he's expecting a daughter. He's got 3 daughters already. I have 3 daughters as well, and we're just talking like, man, it's really scary. And I worked as a school teacher, my career, beginning of my career. Then I moved to become a school principal and superintendent after that. So I would have to deal with all these mashakil of the shabab, you know, both boys and girls. And many of them in Muslim countries, not in, you know, mashallah, the brother in the first lecture was talking about growing up here in America and the problems, right? With the people around you that you grow up with. That's how we started. But subhanAllah, I've worked for 10 years as a school teacher and then principal and superintendent in the Muslim countries. And subhanAllah, yani, you have to be afraid. You have to be afraid. And the fitna is so big. But one of the fundamentals is that we're confused even in our basic fitrah. Right? You don't know. Are you a man? Are you a woman today? People are confused about that basic. You could say, you can be confused maybe about, am I smart? Am I dumb? Am I handsome? Am I ugly? Am I successful? I can be debate these things, yeah? SubhanAllah, but when you have, and I work as a counselor, and when you have people coming to you and say, Ya akhi, I'm a bit confused whether I'm a man or a woman. And by the way, if you say things are right, like they've had to put out laws to and certain legislations to stop people from contesting these things, from having an intellectual dialogue on these issues, which is obviously very concerning. But these are basics. Like literally, astaghfirullah, you can look down and you can check. But people are confused. So when it comes to what Sheikh Uthman was talking about, one of the reasons that we are so weak is because, and I'm just going to address the brothers, the men. And even people get triggered when you mention the word men. Oh, what do you mean? Men what? He, they, them, what? What men? Which men? Men as in M-E-N or M-A-N or mankind, men what? See, in Arabic, it's rujula, rijal. And we shouldn't be like afraid to establish this fact. And manhood was something that was valued and celebrated. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Nur, رِجَالٌ لَا تُلْهِهِمْ تِجَارَةٌ وَلَا بَيْعٌ عَنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Clear. Okay, let's go further. All the Anbiya and the Rusul were Rijal. What's the evidence for that, the dalil? إِلَّا رِجَال. أيوة. Clear. There's how many prophets and messengers from the hadith? تقريبا يعني 124,000. There's some different narrations, okay? Let's say approximately تقريبا 124,000 prophets and messengers, not one woman. There's some opinions, they say that Maryam alayhi salam, because the angel came to her, but this is easy, the ulama refuted that very easily. Okay? Only men. Why? Allah willed so, ya akhi. This is Allah's will. بما فضل الله بعدكم على بعد. خلاص يعني. This is it. للرجال النصيب. خلاص. This is it. And the women have theirs. That's it. What's the big deal? Allah. وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنثَى. Simple. One of the main reasons why, as Sheikh Uthman was mentioning, that we're in this mess today is because we're not real men. We're not willing to uphold and celebrate that and be proud. You're told that you are bad. A man is almost born guilty today in the 21st century. And we don't know how to act. Why do you think there's so much crime around? Because men are programmed to have strength and violence in them. But we just don't know how to deal with it. The system doesn't help you. You know, puts you in school, sit down on a chair for 8 hours a day, shut up, listen, follow this, follow that. Boys don't, we can't. Actually, there's so many educational studies and theories on that. Men don't, we don't function like that. We cannot function like that. And a lot of the problems that we're dealing with today, brothers, is because we are not feeding that rujula. We're not proud of it. We're not using it. We're suppressing it. And because we're suppressing it, our forefathers used, their lifestyle was such that these sifat, these attributes of manhood, were needed and valued. And today's society, I mean, we don't know what to do. We're in a crisis. Imagine taking a lion from the jungle and putting him in a cell. He's going to lose his potential. He's going to become a little house pet. You see now these people with pets, lions in their homes in certain countries. Now you have a lion in your house and it's like ajib, you know. But that's what happened to men. We become like house pets. Our potential, our strength. You got young boys running around the street, killing each other, shooting each other, joining gangs. Why? Because men need to belong to a mission, to something that's greater than just working 9 to 5 and just serving their families. Which is no problem. كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في خدمة أهله. It was in the service of the family. No doubt, we don't deny that. ألا واستوصوا بالنساء خيرا. You treat women kindly, no doubt. This does not contradict what I'm saying. But today, fathers don't know how to show their young boys how to be men. We don't like, what's the measure of when you become a man? What's the tick? How do you become a man? What is it? How do you know? Or you reach 18 or 19 or whatever is the age. 12 o'clock, that's it, right? They judge you. Yeah, 11:55. If you commit a crime 11:55, you'd be judged as a minor. What is this? But the ulama had very clear signs. If you look into the African traditions, you will find specific traditions in which the men would take their boys and make them into men, whether it was hunting or something, your first kill or whatever. Yeah, today, how many brothers have made zabiha? Men used to take their children and teach them how to slaughter. Very young ages. To teach them what it means. Most guys today, I'm getting like dizzy if I see blood, Sheikh Uthman was talking about, cutting your finger, yeah? They go, hey, brother, I'm getting dizzy. No, really. So we don't know what is manhood anymore. And now they've come up with labels, right? Whenever you want to distort something, you have to come up with labels, with slogans. So it's toxic masculinity, right? It's mansplaining, whatever they call it. All kinds of weird labels that they come with to distort it, to make sure that people are afraid. And if you somehow say, I'm proud to be a man, oh bro, this is hatred, this is not good, you're going down the wrong path, you're not going to be a good man, a good husband. It is because of our weakness as men, and we're responsible in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to uphold His message. It's always been on the shoulders of men. I don't know if women don't like it, anyone does, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't, because this is a fact. Now, the faster we get to fix ourselves as men, because we have problems, no doubt, we admit that, the faster we can actually fix the bigger problems in our societies. And the weaker we become, and the weaker we accept, and we just submit to this whatever culture they're trying to push on us, then indeed we're going to be blamed for it. Because guess what? There's a lot of accountability and a lot of responsibility on men still, but no authority. How are you going to have accountability and responsibility with no authority? That's like saying a police officer, hey, go and protect, yeah? No gun, no handcuffs, no car, nothing, just go and protect. So you're responsible. Oh, there's crime in the neighborhood. Police officer, let's get him. It's his fault. Yeah, but he's got nothing to do. Where's his authority? Where's the authority? Where's the authority of men today? Nothing. We're left at the mercy of whoever wants to be nice to us. But we're responsible. Anything happens, anything goes wrong, yeah? And you see it in time of war. Anything goes wrong, all the men and the children and women on the train, all the men stay back, bros. Well, you don't even know how to hold it, nothing. But this is how it is. So one of the main reasons, as Sheikh Uthman was saying, giving the examples, the battles and the ghazawat and all these things, these were real men. Sahaba, real men. That's why they didn't compromise. Sahabas had differences. There was issues, no doubt. But they never compromised who they were, their positions, what the truth is. And they lived and died like that. For us, it's a different story today. And this is why we need to reclaim this God-given right in the right way, following the Quran, Sunnah, as the Prophet ﷺ showed us, not the way I say it, or Sheikh Uthman, or anyone else. This is the way the Salaf always said, you follow a person based on how he follows the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. You follow him how he follows, how he brings you and connects you to the Quran and Sunnah. Not how well he speaks, how good he looks, how smart he is, how philosophical he is, or anything like that. It doesn't matter. If I mess up, finish. That's it. What Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said. What if I do this? I do it. We're going to deal with you. Okay? It's how you follow the truth. To connect it to my topic, one of the reasons why we men are weak today, it is because we live in a society that is hedonistic. It is a hedonistic world, actually. And hedonism is based on following your desires. None of us are spared. We have to be as honest as possible. Okay, one of the first, and I'm supposed to speak about addiction. One of the first and main points when dealing with addiction is to be honest with yourself. If not, you will not ever get rid of it. And as society was progressing, and obviously problems were increasing, and this is nothing new. It happened during the previous empires as well. Entertainment and substance abuse became very rampant to unfocus people from the real problems. So alcohol, drugs, entertainment, all kinds of time passing, these were always there under different forms and shapes. But they were never just haphazard. They were basically instilled in place to make sure that people are not focused on the reality of life. This is no conspiracy theory. You can look at the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire. You can see how Andalus, Spain fell, even after 700 years of rule, Islamic rule. One of the reasons it fell was because of the singing and dancing and belly dancing and the parties and all these things that were happening. That disobedience that were open now. There's a reason. I mean, when you disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in private, it's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can make tawbah. Once you reach a level when you disobey openly and you don't care anymore, then wait for Allah's punishment to come. And there's a saying in my language that Allah doesn't beat you with a stick. He will send on you different things. And the Arabs also have a saying. They say that we used to be ashamed of Allah. And we used to be ashamed of then our families. And then we used to be ashamed of our neighbors. And then we used to be ashamed of our society. Right? He said, now we lost most of these levels of shame that were there on top to protect us from doing what we are doing. When it comes to our weakness today, we are addicted to many things. And addiction keeps a person not only into a certain toxic loop, but it also makes a person spend money. And someone always makes money out of this. Those people who put on the entertainment, the people who make the alcohol, the people who put the drugs together. People benefit from this. You have to understand addiction, because addiction means a repetitive, toxic cycle of coming back to the substance that you are addicted to or the behavior that you are addicted to. So common addictions today, you would think that it is cocaine, dope, or marijuana. Actually, the most common addiction is pornography. And then obviously like phone addiction and social media, shooting through the screen. Substance abuse is also big, but it is most likely, it is below the usage of pornography and device addiction. And while shooting dope or snoring coke has more clear physiological, noticeable effects, pornography is more dangerous, for example, because it has psychological effects. it stains your nafs, it changes your brain. And it's hard to tell because the nafs is not something that is tangible, nor is your brain that easy to be able to scan and to understand what happens to it, even though we do have access to scans. And when they compared the scan of a brain on pornography or addiction to social media and the scan of a brain that is addicted to dope, they're very, very similar, subhanAllah. So, as I said, addiction is a complex condition. It's compulsive use of a substance or engagement in a certain behavior. Despite that, we know the negative consequences. Most people, they know that this is not good for me, yet we cannot stop. Now, it's something a bit different than what used to be before, because yes, indeed, before they used to have khamr. Okay, and the hukmul khamr, what is it? It is haram. Why? So why? How do we know that? Okay, rijs min shaitan, but yes. So the statement or the call was that kullu muskirin khamr wa kullu muskirin or kul khamr, and it's haram, yeah? And khamr comes from the word khimar, which is the cover of the head, right? So when the liberals, they say that, well, khimar, hijab, it doesn't really mean to cover the hair. But in Arabic, it's like saying like, you're not, like if I tell you put your gloves on, you're not going to put them on your feet, right? You know exactly where to put them. It's just from the language, you know exactly, right? So when you say khimar, it is to cover your upper port down. So the muskir or the intoxicant, which covers weed, marijuana, anything, right? That's why the Prophet ﷺ didn't say like just a specific word that defines, for example, wine, or it said an intoxicant, right? So because it covers your aql, your reasoning, it changes the way you think. It changes your neural pathways, the connections from the normal to something abnormal, right? So at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they used to have khamr, but there was no pornography. It has a different effect on you. It comes in under very different shape and form. So when we're dealing with substance abuse and substance compulsive addictions, you look at substance and then you look at behaviors. All right, and we have to separate the two. When it comes to drugs and when it comes to alcohol, when it comes to marijuana, okay, the way to understand this from the addiction perspective is that the substance itself becomes addictive because it increases your dopamine or your feel-good hormone. In your brain, basically, there's a hormone. It's called dopamine. The level increases every time you engage in some feel-good activity. For example, if you work out and you feel like you've achieved something, you feel motivated. You feel like doing again, what more? When you look in the mirror and you find some gains, right? Or someone tells you, MashaAllah, man, look at those guns, right? Allahumma barik. You feel like going and doing it again next day or the day after. You have a schedule now. You feel motivated, right? Because you feel good about it. Or you've achieved something. You've memorized. Wow, now your sheikh says, MashaAllah, you did amazing. Now you're even more motivated. You want to do more. Right? So it's kind of like the same type of mechanism happens in your brain when you feel good. However, the outcomes of those substances, there's nothing positive to it. Right? Actually, it's something that is very, very negative. that destroys your brain, because your brain gets used to it after some time. And this dopamine threshold now hires itself. So now it requires more. And that's where you have why people overdose. People overdose is because they're looking for that first high. You understand? But they'll never get it. Actually, you'll never get that first high. It never happens. Right? So now they're chasing it, they can't get it, they add more, they think more means more, better. Hence, their body cannot handle it, and they die. They can't control it. And I understand. And I've looked into this as much as I could, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed me, to look into the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to understand how did he give nasiha? How did he advise people when they had issues? So you have, for example, Abu Mahjar radiallahu anh, who was an alcoholic. And the Prophet ﷺ used to order him to be whipped. He was whipped and whipped. Even after the Prophet ﷺ passed away, he still wasn't giving it up. Till later in one of the battles, when he turned around one of the battles, beautiful story, and he finally, left it. But you can see the sabr of the Prophet ﷺ in dealing with it. But he was still punished. He didn't change the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now you cannot say, well, brothers, let's understand it's not so easy. Khalas, let's cancel the hukm of Allah. No, cannot do that. But still, the Prophet ﷺ would say stuff like, when sometimes some of the Sahaba, Sahabas were, mashallah, they're very raw. Whatever they felt, if they would say something, So sometimes they would say, there was another Sahaba, Abdullah. And they used to say, he's drinking. They say, yes, but he loves Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes, he's doing wrong. Yes, he got whipped. He would be whipped. I believe they used to call him himar, donkey. Astaghfirullah. Radiallahu. Sahabas were amazing, subhanAllah. But the Prophet ﷺ used to love him. Now this is where, when you look at giving nasiha and how to deal with these things, the prophetic way was not just like, get away from me, you are a sinner, don't come here. The Prophet ﷺ used to teach, give love, sometimes give some darb, some asaya, jald. But it's like in parenting, when you look at these days, sadly, I don't know, like Pakistani mothers, maybe they still, Arab mothers, Sudani mothers, definitely, if they're any Sudanis. But maybe Mexican mothers, I heard, they're quite strict, But they love you, right? It's not abuse. It's love with bit of strength. One of the ulama was walking to his dars, and it's funny because he said, I just saw this child screaming, running, and his mom was running after him and throwing shoes and smacking him. And he's like, scream, and he ran. And I said, he saw the alim is saying, subhanallah, I wonder what he did, right? And then he came back from his dars. He saw the boy laying down by the door, waiting. He said, subhanallah. He said, he ran away from her, but he came back to her because he knows that this is the only place that's safe for him. And he said, that's how it is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ? Where are you going? إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا ذِكْرٌ لِلْعَالَمِينَ. You cannot escape from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except to Allah. You can never run away from the punishment of Allah except to go to Allah. Right? So when we're dealing with this, we have to understand that addiction specifically is not like other sins. Okay? Sins are not all the same. They're small sins, they're big sins. There's sins that invalidate your deen, and there's sins that are mistakes. Okay, not every sin is the same. The ulama categorized the sins. And indeed, all these addictions are sins. But not all sins are addictions. Right? So we need to understand. So we're dealing with addiction, and I believe I haven't seen really around the world the correct mix between the deen and ilm, and to make qiyas from the life and the hukum of the Prophet ﷺ, to use it in a professional way to deal with addiction. It's either a secular way of dealing with it, or khalas, it's haram, and don't be around here because you're a danger to us, right? So this is maybe a taqsir or a mistake that we have in our ummah, that we have not explored, because when dealing with addiction, it needs real prophetic approach in how to balance that strength with that love, that hope. Because an addict, he needs strength, discipline. You cannot get out of addiction without discipline. But you need love. So the Christians usually, and sadly I've worked with, and I've seen some of these organizations, most of the addicts or addict places that are Christian based, they do not succeed well. Because in the end, there's no fear aspect. They go to their church and then Jesus died for sins. They're like, but if he died for my sins, why am I pushing myself so hard to suffer? Khalas, let me just do whatever. So when you look at AA, the Christian organizations, you'll find that it's kind of like a hotel, in and out for people. Right? But then sometimes when you look at the Muslims, we push people away. Okay? Oh, this guy's a druggie. This guy's an alcoholic. Yeah, but he might have a good heart. He might be a really good person. It's just that he's suffering with this thing. He might be bringing this from Jahiliyyah, from his previous time. And addiction will follow you, man. He will follow you. And guess what? Everyone that I talk to, imams, sometimes, not everyone, astaghfirullah, but many imams that I talk to, and secular Muslims who are psychologists and whatever, who don't use Islam. We have a lot of Muslim psychologists that have nothing to do with Islam. Nothing. No Sharia studies, no nothing. We forget one major element component. Big one. What is it? What is it? What do we forget? Who's using these things? Shaitan. We all forget the shaitan. He is an expert in this stuff, man. He is the one who knows this thing. Don't think he's using sticks and stones. Shaitan is not living in... He is updated with everything. Everything, all these things. You think he doesn't know? He's been studying and patiently waiting. And he knows. And a lot of times we forget the shaitan. SubhanAllah, some of the brothers who have Sharia knowledge, people come to them and they say, Akhi, I think you need to see a doctor. I say, Akhi, at least give him some ruqya, give him some nasiha, give him something from the deen. I think you need some medicine. I hear this so many times. And we should never rule out shaitan from this equation. Shaitan is using anything he can because he took a promise and he told Allah that I will misguide them. I will do anything that stays in my way and I'll misguide them. And that was his promise. So addiction is one of the go-to weapons of shaitan. Okay? These are one of the main weapons of shaitan. And we need to understand that in order to deal with addiction. Because to come with a comprehensive treatment plan that can help someone get out of addiction, you cannot eliminate the Quran and the dua and the ruqya shari'iyah from the equation. Cannot. Cannot. People go here and they leave the Quran there. No. You need to have a very comprehensive, a disciplined method, strength, but at the same time, love and a compassionate, understanding community and people who will help you, family, and so on. I think this is where we have the right tools in our Sharia and the Deen, but we're not connecting them. And when you look at the Prophet ﷺ, the way he would deal with the kuffar, the way he would deal with people who were and have done some horrible things, horrendous things. It was a very, very different way than the way we are sometimes handling certain issues. And you can see the evidence for that. The way the Prophet ﷺ would try and he would work with these people. Yet there's a limit. There's a limit. There's always a limit, and the Prophet ﷺ would clearly define that limit. But definitely, he would always give hope to the people. Right? Bashiru. Give glad tidings. So, this is what I am trying to understand and to study as to how we can deal with this addiction. And it is such a spread, it's so spread. I was looking at some statistics. Now, how do we derive these statistics? Because of the usage of internet, a lot of these companies, they have what's called cookies, tracking cookies. Why do they track your activities? Because they want to sell you stuff that is of interest to you. And they want to understand what you are looking at so that they can actually produce different content that basically you will consume or buy. So they're making money from it, right? So any website, anything that we visit, right, you find at some point when you open up Amazon, all of a sudden it recommends you. Like I was trying to buy some caps, the other day, some winter toques. Everywhere I open now, it's all toques everywhere. It's like I'm not even everywhere. Everything that I open is the toque that I was looking for. Because that's how they do it. So through this, we are able to extract some information about what people do, what they buy. And I can say, when it comes to, for example, pornography, it is so widespread, men and women, that people, when I talk to them, they're shocked. They say, you're lying. You're making this up. Not to mention that the cases that I deal with as a counselor, that sometimes, as we say in Romanian language, the cat will stand on its tail, from استغرب القطة it gets like shocked, like, so it's so shocking that sometimes you're like, even myself, I'm like, is that, it's real? So the statistics are so staggering, so shocking, yet we're living in ghafla. We are denying it. And one thing that you see with the Prophet ﷺ is that he was very, very straightforward and direct when it came to real issues. If we want to solve problems, we need to understand problems, we need to admit problems, then we can try to tackle problems. Inshallah, as we go tomorrow and day after, we'll get deeper into it, inshallah, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. I just wanted to introduce my topic with today's speech, just to raise awareness. And in review, I connected what Sheikh Uthman was talking about, rujula and manhood, and why we're compromising our deen. And I wanted to show where are some of our weaknesses coming from. Because when we cannot control ourselves, then it is a sign of weakness. And we all have weakness. And as we know as men, one of our greatest weaknesses is women. And Shaitan, he knows that exactly very well. And he will capitalize on that every single time he can. So, the Prophet ﷺ said in authentic hadith, it's not my words. Okay? So he said, فَاتَّقُوا الدُّنْيَا وَاتَّقُوا النِّسَاءَ. So be careful of this dunya. It's a longer hadith. And he said, and be afraid. I don't know, sisters are gonna throw some chair or something, but be afraid of women. Now don't be afraid now, guys, like, oh my God, I'm scared of my wife. But it's like there's a fear there that we should have when dealing because of the haram aspect and the easily to sway. Alright? طيب. So inshallah, I'll leave you with that. Barakallahu feekum. Wa jazakallahu khair. Salatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.